Hey, this is Randy from BibleBindGuide.com, and this is part 2 of our look at the New King James verse-by-verse center column reference Bible from Thomas Nelson in the Premier Collection. Part 1, we did an overview of the Bible itself. Part 2, we're going to compare to a whole bunch of different Bibles. So the first Bible I want to compare to is the New King James Preaching Bible. Of course, the cover material is different because the Premier Collection is goatskin, leather lined, where the Preaching Bible is calf skinned with paste down liner. But what I want to compare is the layout and design. Now, both have amazing paper. I love the paper in both of these Bibles. The paper in the Premier Collection is a little bit more elegant. Both are 36 GSM. And both are excellent. I can't complain about either one of them. Both are excellent. This is a little bit whiter paper, while this has a little bit more of an eggshell or an off-white, probably off-white, more of an off-white look. And then the main difference being that it has red highlights versus blue highlights. And then for the Preaching Bible, we have our references in the footer. And for the verse by verse, we have them in the center column. And what you like is just a matter of personal taste. And then, of course, the reference Bible is going to have a few extras, like book introductions and then concordance and maps in the back, while the Preaching Bible has no other information in the back and no other information in it. So it just ends back there. A couple of pages to write on, but not many. Now, both do have the poetic setting. The verse by verse looks a little bit smaller, but not much. Not much at all. Maybe slightly, but not much. Let's get us a good setting here in prose. Let's look at the red. So now we see that the verse by verse is red letter, while the Preaching Bible is black letter. And let's see, we might as well compare something. And they're on different sides of the page. But take a look at the Beatitudes. If you can even see them here. They're both on different sides of the page, making it a little bit more difficult to compare. But both are close to the same size, if not exactly. Just about the same size. Both are excellent Bibles. If I had to choose one, I couldn't. I wouldn't be able to. But the Preaching Bible might have a little bit more white space in the text, which is why I was wanting to look at the... Yeah, it's got a little bit more white space. It's got a little bit wider column because of not having to share space with the notes and with the references. Either one. I wouldn't be able to choose between them. So don't make me. And the next one is the other Premier Collection, New King James, double column. This one is the thin line edition. And you can see the difference in thickness. It's quite a bit of difference, actually. About the same footprint. And then, of course, this has the spine ribs, where this one does not. The leather, the grain is more prominent on the verse by verse. The leather is, this leather's thicker than this leather. Both do look nice, but I do like the verse by verse better. Paper is the same. And we have that same situation with the layout, where the references are in the footer. And we don't have to share space, so we have more horizontal space for poetry. With that said, though, this one does break up the poetry in a good place, so they're both fine. This one has about 8 to 10 words. This one has 7 to 8. Same with the Preaching Bible, about 8 to 10. But then this one also has the concordance and maps. Now this concordance is smaller than this concordance. This one is quite a bit more in it than this one does. Let's do a comparison. Let's look at what we have here for God. So for God, this one starts down here. And quite a few. Kind of hard to see where it stops. It stops right here. So we're only looking at about that much. Plus it's a smaller font. So this one's a lot larger font, a lot easier to use, I think. If you need a larger font, then it'd be better to have larger font in the concordance also. Not always ideal to get though. So here we have God starting up here, going all the way here. It's kind of hard to tell the difference though because of the smaller font, but this does have more entries. But it also has the better ribbons, the verse by verse does. So this is the first round of Premier Collection, which I do like, but I do think that they've made some improvements and that it shows here. And here is the Open Bible. This one is the burgundy, which looks really nice. They're about the same size. Pretty close. The Open Bible might be a little thicker. About the same footprint. Of course, this one is imitation leather, so we won't compare that, but I do want to compare the layout because they are both center column verse by verse. And you can already see the difference. The Open Bible does not have a poetic setting at all, while the verse by verse does. I like it when they keep the poetic setting. I like that, even in a verse by verse. But we can see they have the same references, and this paper is more elegant than this paper is. This is good paper, and it's whiter paper, but they both do have the red highlights, which I like a lot. And let's look at the red letter. And you can see we've got a lot larger font here. We have a 10-point font, while this one is labeled as 9-point, but they've redone their scale, so it's actually a little bit smaller, more like an 8.5, 8 in that range. Another Bible I want to compare to is not verse by verse, but it is about it's similar in size, so that's why I want to compare the two. This is the Scholar Quintile in 36 GSM, and there's our size difference. The Quintile is larger. It's also not as flexible. This leather is more flexible than this leather. Both are leather lines. Both have the spine ribs. And this one is just a little bit more solid. So if you're looking for something more solid, that has that more solid feel. This one has a little bit more looser feel. And then look at our design. Main difference is the footer references. So this one still has to have share space with the center column reference, while this one does have a little bit more space. How they take advantage of that is making a larger font rather than having more words per line. It has about 8 words per line. So very similar in how many words per line they have. It's just that this one is able to get you a larger font. And then of course they both have concordance and maps. The Scholar has their own maps. Then let's look at red letter. The red letter in this edition is lighter than the red letter in the Thomas Nelson. I prefer a little bit darker red. I do like this red. I do like this red a lot. But this red is a little bit bolder, I think. Stands out a little bit more. And then the next one. Another Scholar I want to compare to is the newer version of the Quintile, which is thinner. And you can see there it actually is a little bit thinner than the Thomas Nelson. Of course, the Scholars are paragraph. And this one is 28 GSM, but this is Indopaque, which is a higher quality paper than most thin papers. One of the highest quality papers you can get for Bible. And they have a very similar darkness. I think the Thomas Nelson is a little darker. I do like this dark font, this dark red. Looks really nice. Dark red looks really good. And then here is our red letter versus red letter. Now, if I had to choose a red letter, I do like this red letter because I like the darker red. But this is a good enough red. And I'm not saying I'm settling for this. This is a good red. I like this red. I'm just saying someone's going to ask me to choose. And in this case, I have to say I like this one. But they're both good red. They really are. No problems with either one. As far as paper, Indopaque is a high quality paper. It can be a little bit difficult to turn when it's new. Once you've used it a little bit, it has a little bit of a coating that not necessarily wears off, but it's like new money. When you have new money, it sticks together. That's what you have with Indopaque because of the coating. It is a more elegant paper, and as you can see, it's highly opaque. This one is still a good paper. This is still a premium paper. They're both really good. Everything else about these are the same as far as, you know, everything about the quintile is the same as the previous, including the maps and the concordance. Both are nice Bibles. And as you can see, this has the thinner ribbons. But now this is the calfskin edition. So I'm not really comparing cover. A Bible that it's similar to is the KJV giant print Thomas Nelson Premier Collection. They have a very similar footprint. The New King James is a little bit thicker. And then, of course, has the spine ribs, while this one does not. This is the first edition of the Premier Collection. It does have a little bit more pronounced grain than the thin line New King James. This one is softer. This feels a little harder. This one feels a little softer to the touch. Thickness is about the same. This one's more flexible than New King James is. Same paper. And I just wanted to compare the print quality and font size. So if you're familiar with one, you'll have an idea of what the other looks like. Same red, same darkness in font. And then this one, being a verse by verse, does not have a poetic setting for Psalms at all. That's how they compare. And I know you'll ask how it compares with the Turquoise. Why Turquoise? I'll show you. Because they have a similar size. They have a similar font in darkness. The Turquoise is not as wide. Maybe a little slightly bit taller. Not much. Not enough to care. And then both have the spine ribs. Turquoise is flexible, but the New King James is more flexible. And both have elegant ribbons, but the New King James has three, 2 black and 1 red, while the Turquoise has 2. Turquoise also has the 28 GSM Indopaque that we saw in the Scholar, while this one is the 36. And this is the old style font. This is an old antique font, hot press metal stamp. And as you can see, it has self-pronouncing text. This one is in red letter. And here's how we compare our red letters. So about 11 point. They call it 10 point. And this one is I would call this a true 10 point. This one I call it 11 point. And the reason I call it that, I'll show you. Because when I measure with my typography scale, this one comes in closer to the 11 mark, while this one comes in at the 10 mark. If I can find something to measure there, that one comes in at the 10 mark. So that's why I call this an 11 and call that a 10. So yes, this is a true 10. But both are nice Bibles. But that's how they compare. This one has a little bit darker font. That's not always good though. I mean, yeah, it's fine. This font might be a little bit too dark for reading for long periods of time. That type of boldness can hurt your eyes a little bit. It depends. Some people are more sensitive to it than others. This one will be easier to read for a longer period of time. And then, of course, in the back we have our concordance and maps. Another one it reminds me of is the Omega from Crossway. Same footprint, but the Omega is thinner. And the Omega, you can see it does have a little bit more of a yap. I don't know. Yeah, maybe a little bit more of a yap. The Omega's leather is a little bit stiffer. Not by much, just a little bit. Both are leather lined, both edge lined. Spine ribs, and then spine ribs. And then the Omega also has the 28 GSM Indopaque. And there's how they compare. They have an innovative design where we have our references in the footer. They're always down there under the last verse on the page. The advantage to that is that you don't have to share space on the page. And then, now of course this is a paragraph setting, but just to get an idea of how the two compare. So if you're familiar with one, that's how it looks compared to the other. And for our final comparison, the New King James Classic Verse by Verse Center Column Reference Bible in imitation leather, just to see how they look. Reviews of these will be coming soon. We have it in brown and we have it in black. Full reviews coming soon, but just to get an idea of what they look like, how they compare, because you will ask. Same text, about the same thickness. Looks like I got something bent there. So, same text block. We'll just look at one because they're the same thing. Which would I buy? Depends on how I'm going to use it, what I'm going to use it for. If I'm going to use it for my everyday, daily use, I'm going to go with the Premier Collection. If I'm going to take it on a journey, depends. Depends on what I want to do. I can see taking the Premier Collection on a journey. There's no problem with that. It would last. There's no problem with that. If it's something I'm afraid is going to tear up soon, I don't know. I like them both. If it's something I'm not going to bring back or whatever, the paper is so close. This is a little bit more elegant, I think. It's hard to tell. This paper is really good. This is really good paper. I don't know. I can't tell. Really good paper. I like them both. Trying to get a good view here of our red letter. Come back over here. There we go. Red versus red. So both have excellent paper. I don't think it's the same paper, but they're both excellent. Both of them are. So if you're looking for something to save a little bit of money, this is a great choice. If you're wanting something that's going to last longer, I recommend this one. If I could only have one, I want this one. I'll take the Premier Collection. Simply because it's made to last. These are made to last maybe for, not necessarily extended use. These are really good though, for the money especially. And they're a good place to start. You can always grab this guy, use the text block, decide if it's what you want to go with a better quality version, and then work up to this one later. Both are good choices. And then there's how all three look side by side. So reviews coming soon. So that's our comparisons of the Thomas Nelson New King James Verse by Verse Center Column Reference Bible and the New Comfort Print Font Elegant Bible. They've done an excellent job with this Bible. I'm liking this one a lot. It's one of my favorites. If you have any questions, let me know. They did provide this in exchange for an honest review. And honest reviews are always 100% guaranteed. Thanks for watching.